Alright folks, welcome back. In this video we're going to discuss yet another example of solving systems of equations with substitution. Yet another method that we have of finding the solution to a system. So let's jump right into this example. So here we have two pretty ugly equations. 1/2 x plus 1/3 y is equal to 1/6. And the second equation is 2/3 x minus 1/4 y is equal to 11/12. Now, the reason I give you guys this example is we see ugly fractions all the time and we have to know how to deal with them. We can use the same skills that we've developed for substitution here, we just have to make it look a little bit prettier before we can do it. Now we could do it with the fractions as they are here. We could do fraction operations and then we could do all kinds of good stuff with that, but that's a lot more work than it's worth. We can actually get rid of the fractions from the very beginning and make our lives a whole lot easier. So let's start off by getting rid of the fractions and then we can actually do substitution. So let's look at the first equation first. So we have 1/2 x plus 1/3 y is equal to 1/6. In order to get rid of the fractions, what we need to do is multiply by something called the least common multiple, or the least common denominator. We're looking at specifically the least common multiple of these three denominators, 2, 3, and 6. Meaning, we want to think about what's the smallest number that all three of these numbers go into. Well, the answer there is going to be 6, right? Clearly 6 goes into 6. 2 goes into 6, right? That's 2 times 3. And also 3 goes into 6. So we know that 6 is divisible by all three of these denominators. So our least common multiple is going to be 6. What we're going to do then is we're going to multiply all three of these terms, meaning both sides of the equation, by that least common multiple. So let's do that. We have 1/2 x plus 1/3 y. We're going to multiply this whole side by 6. This is equal to 1/6 times 6. Now, why do we multiply by the least common multiple? Take a look at what happens. When I distribute this 6 across, 6 times 1/2 is 6 over 2x. 6 times 1/3 is 6 over 3y, which is equal to 6 times 1/6, which is 6 over 6. Now look what happens. 6 over 2 is 3x. 6 over 3 is 2. That's 2y. 6 over 6 is 1. So because we multiply by the least common multiple on both sides, each of these fractions simplifies into a whole number. So now I have a much prettier equation to work with. 3x plus 2y equals 1. So keeping that one in mind, let's take a look at the next equation. 2/3 x minus 1/4 y is equal to 12. 11 over 12, I should say. So I have that 2/3 x minus 1/4 y is equal to 11 over 12. What's the least common multiple of each of these denominators? The least common multiple is going to be 12, right? All three of these numbers go into 12, so we're going to multiply both sides of this equation by 12. Now, when we distribute this across, what happens? Well, we know that 12 and 3 would cancel out and make a 4. So really this is 4 times 2x. We know that the 12 and the 4 would cancel out and leave us with a 3. So minus 3 times y, because 3 times 1 is 3. This is equal to, well, 12 and 12 go away and we're left with just 11. Simplifying this one step further, that gives us 8x minus 3y, which is equal to 11. Now that we have this, what can we do? Well, we now have two simplified equations. 8x minus 3y is equal to 11, and our other equation, which was 3x plus 2y is equal to 1. Now that I have these two equations, I can follow through and do the substitution as planned, and we're good to go. Remember, substitution involves picking one of the equations, solving for one of the variables, and plugging it in to the other equation. And then once you have a numerical value for that, you can go through and solve for the other variable. So that's how we would simplify this. Check back in for more examples, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.